Hello, Ninjas, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is the first sales meeting of the year, and we're very excited about it. My name is Larry Kendall. I'm the author of Ninja Selling, and our topic today is creating my best year yet. I think it always happens at the beginning of the year. We are filled with enthusiasm. We want to have this be our best year yet, and so that's the topic that we'll talk about today. But first, let's make sure we do our gratitudes. It's another day in paradise. So if you're by yourself, think of something that you're grateful for and say it out loud. If you're with somebody, turn to them and share with each other what you're grateful for, because these are the days of miracle and wonder. Every day is a miracle. Every day is a wonder. And we just give thanks for the day. So welcome. And let's start in with one of the questions that I get quite a bit the first week of the year or towards the end of the last year is this: what's your forecast for the next year? Have you heard that one? And of course, we're talking about, what's going to happen with the market, what's going to happen with interest rates, and so on. And every time I hear that, I reflect back on an experience I had as a young rookie. I was 28 years old. It was my second year in real estate. I went to my very first Colorado Real Estate Convention. I was in one of the sessions. I sat down next to a gentleman by the name of Frank. I didn't know it at the time, but Frank was one of the top producers in the Denver market. And I just, as we're sitting there, we're waiting for the session to start, I said, Frank, what's your forecast for this next year? What do you think the next year is going to look like for you? And Frank says, well, Larry, I have 46 transactions scheduled so far, but I haven't finished all my client reviews yet. I figure I'll end up with between 55 and 60 transactions for next year. Now that blew me away. First of all, when I ask most people that question, what do you think about next year? I hear a lot of the word hope. Well, I hope interest rates come down. I hope the market is good, etc. Here's Frank telling me he's already got transactions scheduled, and he can tell me how many transactions he's going to do this next year. I was blown away by that. Then he went on to say, I could probably increase my business by 8 to 10 transactions if I was willing to do open houses, but I don't work weekends. And 50 to 60 transactions is enough for me. I don't need an extra 8 or 10. My weekends are precious to me. I don't work weekends. And then I asked him, I said, well, how do you do that? How do you play at that level? 50, 60 transactions a year, you're not working weekends. What's the secret? And he says, well, the secret, Larry, is building relationships. I was thinking at my first 2 years in real estate, I was like a dog chasing cars. I was out there, telemarketing, knocking on doors, doing all these things. And here's Frank doing 50, 60 transactions a year. He's not working weekends. And he says, I'm basically their real estate man. So they pretty much work with me on my schedule. Frank basically was known as my realtor. Think about your doctor. I think about my doctor, my accountant, my dentist, my insurance agent. How often do we think of our realtor in the same context? Well, we should. And that was the way Frank's clients thought of him was, Frank's my realtor. Frank's my real estate man. So one of the goals I think would be good for this next year, if you're not in that role yet, set a goal to be my realtor. Be the person they think of when they think of real estate, just like their doctor or their accountant. So some of the key takeaways I had from that conversation with Frank that really influenced me and influenced the future of my career was just that moment that I sat with him and asked him those questions. Number one, build a relationship business. Number two, be on purpose in your business. Develop on-purpose activities. That conversation with Frank, him talking about his client reviews, that's now what we call Ninja Habit number 7, which is your real estate reviews. I started building the Ninja 9 that day as I said, I need to document the activities that will be on purpose that will help me build a business and specifically build a relationship business so that I could be predictable. I have a dream that someday I could be like Frank. And it's interesting. Last year I was in Chris Doyle's office. Chris is a top producer at our real estate company here in Colorado. And I said, how's next year look for you? And he said to me, right now I have this many transactions scheduled. He could pull out and show me his warm list, his hot list, and what he had scheduled for the next year. He had a very predictable business. And finally, and probably most importantly, we want to help you build a high income per hour business so that you can have a life. When we talk about creating my best year yet, I purposely put in the word creating versus having. A lot of times I hear agents say, well, I want to have my best year yet. Well, having your best year yet is kind of like I'm subjected to the whims of the marketplace. I hope I have my best year yet. You know, the word hope tends to leak into that conversation when you're wanting to have your best year yet. What would happen if you could create your best year yet? That's really what we're talking about in this particular sales meeting. And the other thing that I want to talk about is, what do we mean by our best year? When you talk to most ninjas, they'll say, well, my best year would be determined if I do more transactions than I did last year, or I have more gross commission income than I had last year. And that's great. That's one way to measure it. But another way to measure it would be from the goal of ninja selling, which is to help you increase your income per hour so that you can have a life. I'm much more impressed with a Frank who can do 50 or 60 transactions a year and not work weekends than I am with somebody who's doing 50 or 60 transactions a year and working 25/8. I think this really redefines success. It's not necessarily by how many transactions. It's not necessarily by the gross commission income. It's not necessarily by our commission split or our fees. I would like to propose that the new definition of success, of having our best year yet, is having high income per hour and having a life. Let's jump into some of the specifics. As you know, there's two parts to this business. One part is doing the business, listing houses, selling houses. The other part is generating the business. We need to improve in these two areas if we want to have our best year yet. In the doing the business, it's the ninja skills. The 10-step buyer process, the 16-step seller process, the pie time management system. On the generating the business, it's really pretty simple. It's basically the Ninja 9. Those 9 success habits will generate the business. Now, most of you who are watching this are ninjas, but we have some folks that are with us today that are just being introduced to ninja. So I'm briefly going to review the Ninja 9. 5 of them are daily habits. 4 of them are weekly habits. The 5 daily habits start with just what we did at the start of this meeting. Start with your gratitudes and your affirmations. Number 2, time block your day and your week. Schedule your to-do list. Number 3, write 2 personal notes, and now we would suggest that you add 2 personal text messages. Number 4, focus on your hot list, people that want to buy or sell in the next 90 days. Focus on your warm list, people that want to buy or sell in the next year. Very simple. 15 to 30 minutes. Start your day with these 5 habits. Then we have your 4 weekly habits. We would recommend that you time block a time to do these. 1 is your customer service calls, your live real estate reviews, what Frank called his client reviews. Number 8 is your 50 live interviews where you ask Ford questions and you listen for change. For those of you that are not familiar, Ford stands for family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Ask those kinds of questions and listen for change. And number 9 then is to update your database. Now, I like to put a star beside habits number 6, 7, and 8. And the reason is because those are your best business generators. If you want to turn up your business, if you want to amp up your business in 2026, habits 6, 7, and 8 will take you there. We like to say in Ninja TSW, the system works. Well, how do we know that the system works? What proof do we have of that? I'd like to share with you a couple of examples. I'll start with James Hugo from Edmond, Oklahoma. James in 2024 had a very frustrating year. He only had 1 transaction for the year. And he was actually exploring a different career. Maybe real estate's not for me, but he decided what he would do first before he gave up on real estate is he would make the investment to come to Fort Collins, Colorado, and come through our 4-day Ninja installation, which he did. He came at the end of 2024. In that installation, he set a goal for 2025 to have 50 closings. Now that's, would you agree that's a stretch goal to go from 1 in 2024 to 50 in 2025? But he said, that's what came up for me. I'd gone a couple of years without income. I wanted to make up for lost time. He set a goal for 50. He showed back up the following year in September of 2025 at the installation again. He went all in that year. He did his Ninja 9 religiously. He also enrolled in something called Ninja 90, which we'll talk about. And when he showed up in September, he stood up in front of the class on September the 19th and said, gang, this stuff works. When I came here a year ago, I had 1 closing. I now have 36 closings and 13 under contract so far in 9 months in the year 2025. So the system works. Now, one of the things that he did was he got involved in Ninja 90. And you may be familiar with that, you may not be, but it's basically a 12-week virtual boot camp, once a week for 12 weeks with a guide helping you implement Ninja 9 in your business. And it really does work. If we go back in time and say, well, where did Ninja 90 come from? Over the years, I did variations of that when I was coaching salespeople. But most recently, it was John Brewer. John is one of our Ninja instructors. He's also the training director at Carolina One Real Estate in Charleston, South Carolina. What John noticed was when the interest rates spiked in the spring of 2022, we call that the shift. All at once, the market started to slow down. And by the end of 2022, he had a lot of agents who were deer in the headlights. Their business had shut down. They were frustrated. They were scared. He had to find a way to help them restart their business. So he started what we now call Ninja 90. And he required Ninja 90 of all new agents and anybody who was struggling, who had gone a month or two without a closing. He called them his relaunch agents. Now, what's interesting is 100% of the relaunch agents had a transaction within 30 days of starting Ninja 90. And that's held true for 4 years running, for 4 years in a row. If you're in a slump, start Ninja 90, and within 30 days, you'll have a transaction. I think that's phenomenal results. And when we say the system works, I think this is proof of that. What we have here now is a little bit bigger sample size than just one Ninja sharing their story at a Ninja installation. Basically, what Ninja 90 does is it helps you focus on your activities, specifically the Ninja 9. If you focus on the right activities, the production will take care of itself. Don't obsess too much about the production. Obsess about the activities that lead to the production. And this comes from the quote from F.M. Alexander. He says, you do not decide your future. You decide your habits, and your habits decide your future. So developing good habits, the Ninja 9 are the habits you want. The Ninja 90 is what helps you install those habits. We like to say that flow fixes everything. Flow is frequency of interaction that you have with your clients and with your friends. As one Ninja said to me, no flow, no dough. So what we want to do is amplify our flow, do more flow, track our flow. And what we find is we're more consistent in our flow if we have a tracking system. And so we track it with what we call a flow scoreboard. And here's what it looks like. You can see here at the top, it says my weekly flow activities, your name, the office that you're in, what week it is. And it's, I know that if I do my activities, my production will take care of itself because I want. And then what is your why? What is your goal that you have? Why are you doing this? And then you can see it starts with your affirmations, with your gratitudes, with your personal notes, with your text messages, with what we call your forward calls, forward and record, with your real estate reviews, flipping on over to your hot list, your warm list, and so on. And you can see a number 10 there that we assign points to each of these, and that there's a potential there of 100 points total for the week. And so we just recently did a case study, and the case study involved 178 rookie agents, and they were all at what I call a standing start. Here they are, they're brand new, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, brand new license. That's it. They have nothing on the books. We put them into the Ninja 90 program. 12 weeks, once a week, online with a Ninja guide. And here's what we found. If they scored 74 points or more out of 100, they had one or more transactions. If they scored 40 points or less, they had no transactions. What that tells us is the system works. What that tells us also is you don't have to be perfect. Sometimes I observe ninjas become frustrated. They beat themselves up because they didn't get 100 points on their scorecard. You don't need 100 points on your scorecard. You just need to do something. You got to do enough. And what we found in this research was 74 or more was enough to actually generate a transaction. And these are raw rookies starting from a standing start. If they could do that, what happens with the experienced agents? Well, they experience a lot more production than that. So the system works. What? When you work the system. So what's the key takeaway from this? A key takeaway for me is it's not a question of whether the system works. It's only a question of whether you will work the system. If you want to have a great 2026, work the system. And the key to working the system is having what we call grit. Do you have the grit to work the system? You know, the ability to carry through on a commitment. The commitment is to work the scoreboard, to work your Ninja 9, knowing it works because we have the proof that it works, but not knowing when the results will happen for me. What if it doesn't happen the first week? Am I willing to have the grit to do it the second week and to hang in there? Maybe you need help. One option for you would be to get a coach. It's interesting, 58 of our Ninja coaching clients had their best year of their careers in 2025. Even though, and we checked the markets that they were in, they averaged markets that were down about 1%. So basically their markets were flat, and yet they had their best years ever. So if you want to hire a coach, don't look at that coach as an expense. Look at it as an investment. What kind of a return could you get on that investment in a coach? That would be an option for you. Another option for you would be to get involved in a Ninja 9 class. A good example, a metaphor, if you will, is going to the health club. If you get into an exercise class, that would be like the Ninja 90. If you hire a personal trainer, that would be like hiring a personal Ninja coach. You know what? Both work. What we know is both of them work. You just have to decide which one is best for you. Now, on the Ninja 90, there's a QR code there. If you're interested, you can take a photo of that QR code. There's a class coming up later this month. You can register for that class if you want to. There's also a QR code here for Ninja coaching, if that might be an option for you to check out. Let me wrap up with 5 ways for you to stay consistent, because really having the grit, being consistent is the key. And you don't have to be perfect. You have to hit 74 or more and to get the results that you're looking for. So number 1 be to track your activities on a scoreboard. Number 2 would be to gamify your activities. Make a game out of it. Let's have a game. How many personal notes can I write this week? How many personal text messages can I do this week? You know, how many, instead of 50 live interviews, habit number 8, can I do 75? Join a group. There's a synergy in being part of a group. We have found it will help keep you consistent. It will help keep you on track. Hire a coach. That's another option for you. Another option, if you, for whatever reason, you don't want to make the investment in a Ninja 90 class or a Ninja coach, get an encouragement partner, sometimes called an accountability partner. Get somebody that you meet with on a weekly basis to help each other stay on the track. I'd like to share a story, and it involves something called a drama doll. Now, some of you are familiar with drama dolls. If you're not, a drama doll is a Japanese goal-setting doll. And the way it works is you set a goal, you color in an eye, and then that doll sits on your desk and stares at you until you complete the goal, in which case then you can color in the other eye. Ninja gave me a drama doll a number of years ago. My very first eye that I colored in was to write the Ninja selling book. And about 2.5 years later, when I had the book in my hand, I colored in the other eye. So let me share with you a story of Brandy Broadley. Brandy's with our real estate company here in Colorado. Last year, she broke $500,000 gross commission income for the first time. She had worked on that for 5 years. Now, she's always been a great producer, but she was never quite able to break $500,000. Finally, she did. And so she colored in her eye. Now, what's interesting about Brandy is she's very disciplined. She has grit. And the reason I say that is because she's a marathoner. And I've run marathons. I know what it takes. You don't train the night before. You have to be disciplined to train every single day. And she's not just a marathoner. She's a great marathoner. She has qualified for and completed the 6 major marathons in the world: Boston, New York, Chicago, London, Berlin, and Tokyo. I asked Brandy, you've had that goal for 5 years. For 5 years, you've hit, in the 400s. Finally, you broke 500. What was different this year? She says, I got an encouragement partner. Megan was my partner, and we met every week and went over our activities, and it made a difference. And then I talked to Megan, and guess what? Megan says, I've been in the business for 25 years. This was my best year ever. And so get an encouragement partner. Let's summarize. What is it going to take for you to create your best year yet? Number 1, consistency is the key. Being consistent in your Ninja 9. Don't let perfection stand in your way. Don't beat yourself up if you don't get 100 points or 90 points, but make sure you get 74 points or more. Keep in mind a C score in high school or college, which would be a 74. In Ninja, a C creates amazing success. Do something every day. The Ninja 9 are easy to do. They're also easy not to do, but make sure you're doing something every day. And then finally, get help if you need it. Don't just float or drift or struggle. Get some help. Get a coach. Get in a Ninja 90 class. Get an encouragement partner. Do something to keep yourself on track. And if you do that, guess what? You'll have your best year yet. Wishing you the best year yet from all of us here at Ninja. Have a great week. Have a great year. We'll see you next month for the Ninja Sales Meeting.